prices should be falling at that rate all around the world. They're not. Most people today are using AI like a Google search. They're using a tiny little fraction of what's possible. You're giving away all your information to a big model, and that big model hallucinates because it has a context window of all of your thoughts, all of your actions in one big centralized thing, and it has to hallucinate.
I was very against it for a long time. I was like, no, I'm not using it, but I do use it now because it gives me so much more time. I'm so much more productive than I've been before, but
You're going to move much of the stuff from the big model completely free inside of.
Welcome, Prague. Thank you for being here. We're going to talk about Nostr and AI. And before I go to these wonderful people, I'll give you first a little setup as to why these two things are actually relevant. So Nostr, for those people that don't know, it's a protocol. What does that even mean? Doesn't matter. It's just a new way to organize ourselves on the internet. And we can organize ourselves on the internet as people, right? Because we humans use the internet, and we share data. It just so happens that in the last couple of years, you might have been aware, there's also this phenomena of these artificial intelligences coming up, and them actually functioning as some sort of autonomous agents. And they can also use the internet, and they can also organize on the internet, and they can also use data on the internet. So I guess that's basically, in an abstract sense, where these two things are merging, and that's what we're going to discuss here with these three people here today. I guess to get ourselves in this topic, I think we can go from it a couple of ways. But one of the things I want to start out personal is, Jeff, if you can tell me, how did you get into this combination of Nostr and AI? If I give it to you, Nostr and AI, and right now, today, how are these two things relevant to you?
I've been in AI for a long time, been following that path and how fast that's moving. And I think today there's a general sense. Most people are overpricing or bidding up AI into the centralized models that will not work. AI is going to look like electricity, and it's going to be ubiquitous. It's going to be in everything in across the board. And for that to happen, maybe a way to say that is, you won't be able to afford the big models. They'll get cheaper and cheaper and better and better and better, but you're giving away all your information to a big model. And that big model hallucinates because it has a context window of all of your thoughts, all of your actions in one big centralized thing, and it has to hallucinate. So I think the way that AI is being solved today, I don't think it actually scales to where it will go. You look at the division of labor of humans, our ideas bumping into each other and creating new ideas. I think that's where AI is going to go. And the division of labor, it means that we break things into small tasks that we're better at. I think where AI is moving is into things like Nostr. It's very early. Most people think Nostr is a social media platform competing with Twitter, and it will never win as a social media platform. It will win as identity, decentralized identity that cannot be broken. And those agents are going to move into that and do small tasks in swarms of agents that you're going to move much of the stuff from the big model to completely free inside of Nostr. It'll do the same thing as the big model and tackle more things. You might use the big model for, I'm building some of this right now. I know Steve here that's doing the same thing. I know Gigi's doing the same thing. I know Pablo Fernandez is doing the same thing. And building some of this infrastructure to be able to ensure that my cost gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and my performance gets better. And so Nostr is going to be part of, I think, is going to be a key part of that infrastructure.
Okay, so what you're saying is you're tying it into what I started out with, this notion of organizing, where these agents, they can perform a particular function, but it also requires organization among these various agents. And you propose Nostr as a substrate for that.
Yeah.
And Francis, why Nostr? I mean, there are so many possible ways that we could organize agents on the internet, I guess. So why is Nostr particularly relevant?
I believe that since Nostr is permissionless, it's an open protocol, that it's free of access, so there's no necessary bureaucracy or registration to access information on Nostr, to build on Nostr. And I think that's very inviting for software, for, in this case, agents, to just by knowing the documentation, by knowing how the protocol works, it's already enough to be able to build on top of it, to be able to maybe come up with new use cases. So I think permissionless technologies such as Nostr and Bitcoin are very inviting for being used with artificial intelligence and just build a whole infrastructure on top.
Okay, so your point is that Nostr is very accessible to these agents, but another way around is like how accessible is this stuff for us humans, right? And for that, I want to go to Tanya. I don't want to offend here, but as a non-technical person, as you would be, how accessible is Nostr and AI for you?
Yeah, no offense taken. I have mixed feelings about AI, I have to say. Like, I was very against it for a long time. I heard, like last year in Helsinki, we talked about Shakespeare, and I was like, no, I'm not using it because that's technology I don't like, because I think I'm here the messenger, like I'm for communities, but I do use it now because it gives me so much more time. I'm so much more productive than I've been before. But I think what we shouldn't forget is like the technology is great, but there's a big part we are sometimes missing on Nostr and AI, and that's like the humanity part. Like, we are humans, and we also like should not focus so much like always on the technology and bring us people together. And that's actually a great thing about Nostr, because the human community there is great. And I was like, for like 2 weeks ago, I was in Oslo, and we had a hackathon, and I said, well, I have a community problem. Like, we have too many members, and this is all centralized, controlled by one person. And in that case, the developers said, okay, we're going to build you something on Nostr, an open protocol, like decentralized, and we vibe coded that. So I do see the advantage of it, and it's very accessible for a not technical person.
Okay, so I guess it's a fair point to say that we probably should keep in mind that it's a means and not an end into itself. You mentioned Shakespeare. Can you tell a little bit about Shakespeare, especially for the audience that might want to dabble into both Nostr and AI?
Yeah, sure. Like, Shakespeare is I don't know, like Ditto, I think, developed it. It's a part of them.
It's part of it's from the Soapbox team. Yeah,
yes,
correct,
exactly.
yeah.
It's part of the Soapbox team. Guys doing a great job, which is very easily, you just actually talk with an agent like called MK Stacks, and they can basically build in a website or an app, whatever you would like to do to vibe code. And I tried it out. It literally vibe coded me in a website like in, I would say, 20 minutes. And I was very, very surprised how easy it is for a not technical person to do that.
Okay, so we're apparently at the state where the non-technical person can leverage this technology in order to do something useful, also leveraging Nostr as a substrate. Jeff, I get the sense that not everybody is doing this already. And I also get the sense that not everybody is actually aware of Nostr. Maybe in this audience, because from the question of Joe, I heard a large cheer. That's very good to hear. But in the broader world, I guess Nostr is not known as such, and then maybe it's even more of a stretch for them to associate it with this thing of AI. In the work that you do and in the circles that you hang, how is this perceived in your world and in the context that you have, and how aware are these people of Nostr?
So the way I think about this, and thought about it for a long time, we had a different, in Ego Death, or me moving into Bitcoin and such, I saw Bitcoin very different than many people saw it at the time. I saw it as this decentralized secure protocol bounded by energy, and protocols emerge in layers. And and the emergence of the layers comes because the neutral protocol, nobody wants to build to the centralized protocol. You can do whatever you want. People, the global talent moves to the neutral protocol. And we saw that in Ego Death, and I realized I need to move all my time to help accelerate that. At that time, Lightning, it probably failed 40% of the time, your transactions. But we knew if we had added our voice and funded the best and brightest entrepreneurs all over the world, you'd start to see this explosion of talent, maybe an acceleration of things. And so now you have Lightning, Arc, Spark, Liquid, and a whole bunch of different things, and Lightning, and the transactions always work. Transactions need to always work to be able to have transactions. And so that whole thing, as we've been building it, it's not just us who've been building, an entire swarm of people, incredible talent all over the world, has been building Bitcoin in layers. Well, they're being competed with other things that are short-term solutions that don't work, that won't scale. Nostr is a similar thing. It came out of nowhere. Jack Dorsey is actually the one who first brought it to me, but I've been on it for a long time. And I realized this is a very different way of integrating these things together, and it's not a social media network. It's part of the infrastructure of this new protocol, that now you have a new internet being built from energy all the way up that can't be co-opted. And so it feels like, and people aren't there because they don't see the value, just like people weren't on the internet in 1975 because they didn't see the value. You have to, a lot of the plumbing and everything else goes in, and then that's hard technical work, and then builds more and more value, and then you can, like, I don't know if anybody's looked at FIPS on Nostr today. Mm-hmm. I know you probably have. But these are critical infrastructure pieces that turn Bitcoin into the new internet. And most people are totally blind to it because they think Nostr is a social network. And they don't want to be there, so they're missing the innovation. I'm not saying the innovation happens all at once, or it's because it's messy. Some things work, some things don't, and then that thing, somebody else takes, wait, if I do that plus this, it creates something new. But that's what we saw in Ego Death. That's what I see today. That's why I'm so incredibly passionate about what's happening. This thing is imposing a new discipline around the world, and it's getting easier and easier to use, and it's building more and more strength in all of these pieces of the protocol. AI is just a tool. It's a productivity tool, and it's a crazy powerful productivity tool. AI in a centralized world means someone controls you. Surveillance state, everything. If you pay in the surveillance state, if you're using that money that powers that surveillance state, you're going to desperately need the tools that these people on the front edge are building desperately. So I would have you join as soon as you can and start to build and learn what's happening in there. You'll be more protected from what's happening.
So, like, I understand, and I also agree. It's just I want to do a little bit of pushback, because you said, like, people think about Nostr as a social media thing. My point would be, is like, people are not thinking about Nostr at all because they haven't even heard of Nostr at all. So how do we get there? Because so it's interesting, because Nostr itself was the idea was published in November of 2020, and I think the whole GPT thing is like around the same time, right? And the trajectory of AI and GPT, it was explosive, like exponential, and immediately everyone in the world started using it. Whereas with Nostr, that's clearly not the case. It's clearly not the case that everybody started using it. So how do we...
So follow back what these use. AI started in the 50s. In the 50s. And the same version of AI today thought they could solve it by 1959. There was a massive bubble in AI, and it collapsed. Same thing repeated in the 70s, massive bubble in AI, and it collapsed. And it was only recently that the technology it got to a spot that now it delivers value. When it delivers value, everybody moves. And so it's not about telling everybody to use Nostr. what ends up happening is this thing is the free market, and people are integrating and integrating and integrating. And once it provides lots of value, people will move immediately. Now, they're also living in a different system. And now their system is getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And the same thing applies to Bitcoin. When they understand that this system that is stealing all of their value, and they're getting destroyed in that system, and this system is giving them back their power, they'll move. But that move right now, this isn't, and that's why I say we're early. It is not a fully functioning everything else. We're investing in it. Lots of things will break. It won't all work, and it's funky in different things. But when I watch the brilliant minds in it, I'm all in, right? And so what does it take? It takes giving tremendous value that is more value than over here. You can be a part of that.
I think this is also good for the audience, the point that you made that things in the world are starting to get worse and worse. Where a good example is GitHub at the moment. It's also relevant in this discussion because GitHub is a platform and it facilitates the sharing and the maintenance of code. And because we have all these AIs now, they're generating so much code, and so they're basically DOSing the platform GitHub, and it's getting down over and over and over again. So if you're in the audience and your Nostr is not necessarily relevant to you right now because you're well and good on Facebook or whatever it is that you're using, just keep it in the back of your mind is that if things are getting worse and you don't like it anymore, you've heard of Nostr, and maybe at that point it's a good moment to have a look at and see what's going on. Talking about what's going on, Francis. You developed a game. You've integrated Nostr. You're starting to leverage AI. What do you see is the trajectory for yourself, right? The rest of the world is sleeping on this. You're not sleeping on this. So you're leveraging it right now. How do you see this evolving for yourself in like the immediate term, like in the next month and in the next year and in 5 years? And where are you in 100 years when you uploaded your consciousness into a jar, right?
That's a great question, and I can even start by replying already with my last year of experience, how my life changed so far.
Yeah.
So, this is all related, like the Nostr and AI and traditional social media, because computing, it's somebody else's computer. And when you are storing data or when you are allowing other people's computer to process your data, you are giving them control over what to do with their data, giving it permission to access it, or even selling it to profit from you. And so this is all very important, and like Jeff was saying, people will start realizing the value of this and start transitioning to these new networks that don't work in the traditional way. And for me, this was my first step, realizing all this added value and starting building on Nostr from it. And like you were saying, I don't have a Nostr client per se. ChainDuel is not a Nostr client, even though it accesses Nostr. We don't make it obvious that you are using Nostr for it. So you have your identity, you have your keys, you can register, you can have your password to log in. But you are not telling people, use Nostr, it's a social media, it's different. So this is all as steps that people take in the learning. And and that allowed me to build ChainDuel with the identity and with the signed payments, apps, right? Without having to pay extra or rely on servers or configuration. So I just can access a permissionless network to store and to access my data from anywhere, and everybody can access it. And it took me a few weeks, even months, to learn everything and to start implementing it and to get my first version out. But then LLMs start getting much better, and we were able to scale up the development and the speed. So it has immediate effects on the quality of life for developers and even for the users, that we finally were able to put in practice so many ideas that we had, and so many people are doing the same right now. And then as it got better and better, and we kept developing products, it got to a point that we don't have to be the whole day stuck in a room in front of a laptop with a keyboard. We can have it on our phones, and we can be having lunch or watching a nice sunset, but we prompt something on Claude, and it's implementing it while you are enjoying time with your friends. So in a way, it's increasing the quality of life for developers and for everyone. And it's also increased the output that we are able to do. And since AI is getting so much better, and normally this will be exponential growth as time passes, it will be faster and faster. And if we try to scale from here and see what's possible in the future, it seems like there's no limit. The sky is the limit, right? And if productivity keeps increasing, and if we keep feeling like we are not forced to stay in, to be productive, to build, and that also can bring big advancements, not only in the digital sense, but also in the humanitarian sense. So that's what I've been feeling in the last year.
Okay, so it changed the way you work, right? You can now go for a walk and task your AI agent on your phone. Can you give us some example? Because you made competitive Snake right now, which is arguably very simple. So now that your potential is unleashed with AI, what is it that you're going to build? Are you going to build like the massive multiplayer online Snake? What is it that you're going to deliver to us?
And although that's in the works, and we are about to release the online mode because it was something that we wanted to do for such a long time, and we didn't have the manpower or to be honest, even the money to put hands onto it. Now it's possible. Now it's available there. But it's now many people realize this, and we get into a new stage of software development that people can actually build products specifically cater for their needs, for themselves, and they don't have to use the platform that is built with 8 billion users in mind. It's like 3 users in mind. And even a couple of weeks ago, I was in my 10-year-old niece's anniversary, and all the kids were running around. So I just vibe coded a fast, quick mobile game, and then I entertained all the kids for 1 hour, and the parents were so happy and so surprised. So it's a brand new world out there, and we can use it in so many ways. For me personally, it's still, I'm not AI hallucinating yet to have ideas of grandeur, but many little tasks or apps that I always thought I wanted to do, but never had the computing power, also the brain power, the time. Now it's all possible, and that gives us so much creative freedom, and it's really incredible what we are experiencing right now.
And Tanya, you just started out actually doing it. Was it last week that you in Oslo that you first really started to use this stuff?
Yeah, kind of 2 weeks ago it was.
Okay,
yeah.
so now we're 2 weeks in. Where do you find yourself, and how do you see yourself using this in the future? What are you going to do next week after this conference?
Like, honestly, I have actually a knee surgery coming up in 2 weeks, and I actually already vibe coded an app like to have a recovery plan. I was like, yeah, because I was looking for, okay, how can I recover? Like, this is the stuff I have to do. This is the stuff I would like to do. And then I was just talking to the AI, and I was just surprised. I was like, no, this can't be true. This is too easy. And yeah, these kind of things. Like, I just try to test it out and see where this goes. And like, if you build it on Nostr, it's like, this is just incredible. You couldn't use your I don't want to go too technical, but you can use your private key in order to log in, and just like the data is all yours, right? Nobody else can control it, and this is brilliant.
All right. I think I'm kind of lost here, Jeff. I'm just being honest. I'm trying really hard to get like a nice pattern and red line through this whole thing. Jeff, is there any other thing, any other angle? Because there is, honest, truly, there are like 1,000 different angles that we can take on this.
This is such a big topic. I ran a software company that at one point had 350 employees. 120 were software developers, and I remember, and this wasn't that long ago, 2016, 2017. I remember to make changes, you had this idea that had to go through all the product developers and the teams and then the sprints and everything else to come back, and then it was be a little bit wrong and you'd come back and everything else. And right now, I do the same thing from idea to execution, the entire thing, by myself. It is so radical. Most people today are using AI like a Google search. They're using a tiny little fraction of what's possible. But that productivity enhancement means, and this is going back to Bitcoin, it means prices should be falling at that rate all around the world. They're not, because people are measuring what I just described. Productivity has to come to you in a free market unless it's taken from you in a market that's stealing from you. And so the biggest transition of our lifetime is this productivity that should be coming to you, that's not. And every company is going to use it. Because if they don't use it, they won't be a company. And if you're using the thing that's more expensive, or you're using a model that's taking these tokens that's so outrageously priced, then it creates an opportunity for another company to cut costs. You just saw what OpenAI did because they're losing the market and they need to go public. They dropped their token price like crazy because Claude's winning. And then Claude axes out half the market, 3/4 of the market in the world because the government says you can't do this. This is such a crazy paradigm that we're living through. Like it's insane timeline that we're living through. Because most people are still measuring all of that nonsense and all the nonsense that's going to come trying to steal your value from the other system when they could just move to Bitcoin, move to Nostr, be part of this solution. And what would you expect? So if you just said what would the free market value if everybody was getting trapped and you were helping them escape? You could create a ton of wealth for yourself, right? Because the free market values what people don't know they need yet before they need, and you'd build what they need. So what's happening here? We're really early in it, but all of the people in this space, and this is why it feels, and many people in this room, are part of that emergent thing that is freeing humanity from this Orwellian system. And you're part of this. You're part of the solution. Now that's really hard to explain to somebody who's still trapped in the other world, because it's so many things that are happening so fast, and some of the things aren't totally built yet. So you discount them and you go back. Well, I can't do that because I'd rather be on Twitter, and then your Twitter account gets shut off because you said something that is wrong against the system, or your YouTube gets punished because you've said something that's wrong against the system. And so, of course, that's going to happen because your time has to be stolen inside that system. And so, this group here, many of the people in this room on this stage are part of that solution. And of course, it's going to feel better because you're early.
So I think the maddening speed at which all these developments are going, right? We just had the release of a new AI model, and it's already banned within like what, a day?
Yeah. Because what's happening is the control system is losing control, and to gain control, it has to drive you into fear, so you stay in it. And as there's these exit points, it has to control you more and more. And so, and these things are going to feel like, and you're going to want to yell at people in it. What is it? And what's happening is you're feeding it with all your energy, all of your energy, every time you react to it. And you don't have to. You can just move. And you can, E.g., Pablo, a bunch of others, you can just do things, right? You can just build things. And you can just move your time. By the way, a bunch of these tools, I'm not a I hired developers. I understand how it works. I understand how I've hired lots of developers and everything else. But I can just do it myself now. I don't need it. If I can do it myself now, you can too. These tools are becoming so ubiquitous, so easy and everything else to use. And if you start using them without fear, you're going to see how easy it is to create things for yourself.
Okay, so Francis, like a little preface here. If if things are going so fast, it's unreasonable for us to, like, we're sitting here on stage, right? But we're kind of, we're also just winging it in terms of like generating answers because things are going so fast. How can we ever expect to have an answer? But I'm still going to ask you a question and expect an answer from you. So it's all very great, right? Jeff has his AI. Nostr is permissionless. He goes onto Nostr. He does whatever. So now we're going to have to share this space, this online space that Nostr provides with the bots. And I think it's pretty interesting because the phenomena of bots is not new. We already had bots, and especially on the platforms, they have a very strange relationship with bots because on the one hand they try to fight the bots. On the other hand, they don't seem to completely mind the fact that there are bots and click farms. So we have a difficult relationship with bots on the internet in general and bots on these platforms. And we have this conversation where we're saying it's like, yeah, we have this permissionless open protocol that we can all use, and now we're going to have to share this open protocol or this open space with all these bots. So are we going to make love to the bots? What's going on, Francis? How are we going to deal with the fact that we're going to be swarmed by bots?
That is one of the dangers that we are facing, right? And if you see governments are using this as an excuse to try to KIC every internet user that you cannot access Google without submitting your ID, right? Nostr has some ways of handling this. For example, some relays use they allow users to perform proof of work when they submit something on Nostr. And this works very well against bots, because if bots want to generate 1,000 posts, and if they are required to have some proof of work in each post, it becomes very computational expensive, it takes much longer, and it's not efficient for the person that is trying to spam so easily to create all this information. Another way that Nostr has to handling this, it's the best proof of work we have in existence, which is Bitcoin. So some relays require you to actually pay to access for them, being it writing or reading. And then one of the fundamental concepts of Nostr, and probably why so many people think Nostr is just another social network, is the concept of identity, right? So in Nostr, everybody has their key, their identity that nobody else has, and that allows you to know, okay, if this person signed this post, I can trust it was really from this person, unless they, of course, they got hacked, they lost their keys or something, but normally they would also find a way to warn you about this. So the web of trust in Nostr, it's a way that people have to create some kind of trust, like in the name, of who is posting and if that content is valid or not.
Okay, so because on Nostr, the protocol doesn't discriminate. Your identity just starts out with this cryptographic key pair, which is just a random number. So there is fundamentally on the protocol level no distinction between a bot and a human, right? They're all just users of the system. But Tanya, you're here arguing for like the human side of things and the human perspective. How do you manage? Are you already seeing this problem of bots popping up on Nostr, and how do you manage it? Or do you see it doing on the horizon?
Well, I think like when I first joined Nostr, which was actually today 2 years ago, so I have my Nostr anniversary here. It was never hard to use it, like you said it yesterday in your keynote. It was just so new. Like normally, like I had no idea what a key was. Like I came to Bitcoin through Nostr, which is quite, that's quite, different to a lot of people who are here in the audience. So I needed to just figure out, okay, what does it mean have a private key, for example? Like that was very confusing because normally when you generate a password and you lose it, well, then I just can, worst case, call my bank and get a new PIN. Like that's different to Nostr. So, but what you were saying with the bots, that was something super new to me because I was, for example, not on Twitter. Like I joined Twitter after I joined Nostr because I was so amazed by the protocol and wanted to tell everybody, join Nostr. Oh. So, Yeah, but I deleted that. It's like it's highly addictive. So I spend way too many hours on the phone. But now with the bots, that was something new, and I was like, oh, what is happening here? But the beauty of it, you can also mute those bots through the relays, and some of the clients I actually have this like muted bot function built in it. So it's something new. Yes, a lot of people are saying, oh, there are a lot of bots and scammers, but yeah, you can handle that.
Yeah, I guess so. The way the starting position is fundamentally different, right? Where these platforms, they have something, they're closed systems, so they have something to protect in the first place. Where I guess Nostr just approached it and approaches it in the open permissionlessly. So we're kind of forced to embrace the bots and figure out and deal with it and come up with answers. And there are probably a multitude of answers that we'll see around. Given the time, I think we have enough time for each of you to get like a closing statement, because like I said, there are 1,000 different angles that you can take on this stuff. So is there anything you still want to get in and address and give to the audience, Tanya?
Well, like a lot of people are here for the first time, like at a Bitcoin conference. For example, my parents are here, my sister's here, and they're probably going to be confused. Oh my God, what is Nostr? What is AI? What are we going to do about it? It's like, just use it. It's like the internet. We just tried it out. We didn't have a manual. That's what I always say. There's a Nostr booth at the end of the expo hall. Just try it out. Ask the people. They're amazing. They're great. And that's where we're here for.
Perfect. Francis?
Exactly the same. I think both Nostr and AI are tools that also they change the way you see things, and they increase your productivity in certain ways. AI exponentially, and I recommend all my friends and family. I think people should try it out. Everybody has different ways of thinking and different ideas, creativity, and you should try to figure out how you can use these tools, what comes out of it, and it might be something that changes the world. Who knows? And there are already many cool things that came out of Nostr. Like we were talking about GitHub before, and now there's also a GitHub on Nostr. So if GitHub is down, you can use the Nostr GitHub to put your code online, and people can always access it. And there's Zap Store that is for Android apps distribution, so you don't have to use centralized platforms like Google Store that censor you and charge you outrageous fees. So there's a huge infrastructure being built on Nostr. And it's not only the Twitter clone, although it's probably recommendable that you start by generating your keys in a Twitter clone and exploring it a bit, following the biggest accounts. But just try it. Don't be afraid of it. Be just a bit careful about which kind of personal information you are prompting, but have fun with it.
All right. Moderator privilege. Jeff, please be short, but you can close this up.
No, I just build on that. It's early, it's evolving. The amount of things is going everywhere. Some will work, some won't work. But you're part of being part of it will give you more insight into how it's working. And the other thing is, bots are going to be everywhere. Your attention is being farmed everywhere you go, and that means you need to get out and you need to touch grass with people you love, with people that are away from that noise. And in Nostr, that identity is going to be important. A bunch of privacy that's coming to Bitcoin is going to be critical in where we're going.
Perfect. Brock, thank you.
Thanks.